how do we know if somebody's a good candidate for credit repair, and that would be somebody that we should be referring to you and your team versus, something that we might be able to handle ourselves? Like, how do we know that? What do we look for?
Answer number one is, if you truly feel like you're just not well versed in understanding credit reporting, it's a good idea to start by just sending us copies of the report. We can interpret the report. We'll give you a write-up, and then we can kind of teach you and coach you along the way how to identify what is a good candidate and how you can advise that particular consumer, and then you'll learn over time.
And you've done that with me, before, and I've really appreciated that and I tell people when I'm talking to them that I'm like a nurse practitioner of credit, right? And you're the surgical specialist. So as somebody that has to know every piece of the mortgage process as an originator, I've got to know how to analyze your income, how to look at your credit, how to talk to you about your collateral, how to talk to you about pricing and products. And I need to know a lot about a lot of things. But when it comes to specifically, I do know a lot about credit, but you might need a surgical specialist. Like, you might need Ivory. And that's like the determination. And I learn as I work with you. And I think that's important for our originators to know, is that they can reach out to you as a resource, and you might be able to say, hey, Karin, go back to them and just do these 3 things. They really don't need me. Like, you can shine in this moment, and here's how I can help you and support you as your partner. And I really appreciate that aspect of your business. We've done that together a lot, and I've learned a tremendously more than I did before. And it's always also changing. So that's huge.
Yeah. It is. And there are some things that look deceptively simple that are actually more complicated underneath. I think there's a lot of misconceptions about, well, there are in general about credit, but there's a lot of misconceptions that a single answer is applicable across the board, and when it's not necessarily the case. So one of the things to know is, when you guys pull a credit report, you're seeing the score factors at the top of the report. If you probably scroll past it every time, but there's a section right under the credit scores, or sometimes right next to it too, where it says the top 4 items that are impacting the credit score, the top 4 things that are pulling the scores down. So you might see something like something about too high of balances. You might see something about a derogatory item, etc. So you, as in the originating space, can look at those 4 items, and that can help you interpret how to advise the consumer. Those are the most 4 impactful. So they're responsible for the biggest point drops. So one, you can use a simulator, whether it's Wayfinder or whatever you have, for anything that's related to like the utilization, right? Tells you what to pay down. Well, what if there's something else? What if it says that credit cards haven't been used in too long? You wouldn't have known that otherwise. Their score is being negatively impacted just because they haven't used a credit card. Go buy something for 10 on your credit card, right?
That's what I was going to say. In that situation, would you, and does it identify which credit cards, or is it just like in general, you've got trade lines that haven't been utilized, go charge $10, pay it off?
It doesn't, but you can just ask your client, hey, when's the last time you used your credit card? Oh, a couple years ago. Okay, well, go use it, right? So there's simple things up there that you can do that you may not have realized. Now, if all 4 of them say a recent derogatory item, too many derogatory items, since last delinquency is too short. Okay, well, very obvious they need credit repair, right? I mean, looking at the report, you'll see that. But there are going to be things up there in those score factors section that you can really use that's not going to come up in your simulator, because your simulator is not looking for whether they've used a card or if they don't have I mean, it depends on the simulator, but a lot of them are missing aspects that you'd be able to identify in the score factors.
Well, and we've talked a lot about inquiries, and that was one thing that I found interesting about, utilizing that part of the credit report is, somebody's got 800 scores and then it says like too many recent inquiries. Well, that's because there's just nothing else. There's nothing negatively impacting the credit score. So an inquiry would have a bigger impact on somebody with perfect credit because there's just nothing else that's impacting them. So people can, is that right? No, that's okay.
I was going to say, also, somebody with limited credit, if they don't have much credit at all or like any history, one inquiry is going to just hit them hard because there's nothing else for the algorithm to go off of.
Yeah.
So you know, and then your simulator maybe it'll tell you to have them open a credit card, but we can teach you the strategy for getting somebody to, you know, the mid 700s who has limited or no credit in like a month.
And that's definitely something that we see. And I would love for you to spend a little time, because I know you have a whole segment of your business around taking people with no credit or limited credit. How do we build credit for somebody that has no or limited credit so that we can either get them a better loan type, better terms on their interest rate and fees? What can we do quickly and easily from your perspective that the new algorithms like in around building credit for people that have nothing? Not necessarily negative, just none.
Yeah, just nothing. So biggest issues you'll face with somebody with no credit is lack of credit age. Obviously, there's no credit. And then needing credit mix. So those are going to be your big barriers. So number one thing we always recommend is getting things added to their credit report, like their rental payment history, utility bill, subscription services. So you may know or may not that in your current mortgage algorithm, things like Experian Boost don't necessarily help your mortgage FICO. We don't care about that with somebody that has limited history, because a credit score is not going to populate unless they have 6 months of history.
Yeah.
So you still want to tell those people to use those credit tools, because otherwise you're going to have to wait 6 months for them to get a score. So tell them add their rent, use Experian Boost. There's other things like Grow Credit, which is the same.
How do they add their rent?
Oh, I'll give you the
link.
How
do we do that?
I'll give you guys a link. It's we use a service called Boom Reporters, but we have a price of $25 to add last 2 years of rent. Most other providers, it's about I stopped to remember. I think it's like $200. It's way too expensive.
So if we pull a credit and they have 0 credit score, but they've got great rental history, our loan officers can reach out to you and say, hey, we need to add their rental history, and for $25, that can go on the credit report and say they've been a great renter for 2 years. Does that mean they've got like a trade line with 2 years of history? And then would a score populate immediately as a result of that?
Not immediately, because they need more than just that account open. So you'd want them to open a credit card too. But the problem if you tell them only open the credit card is now there's not enough age to their profile, so they won't have a score yet. So you're using the rent for the history, not for the score, and then you're getting the credit card, so the score will populate because of the algorithm you're using.
And then what about adding authorized user accounts? Is that still a strategy that would help?
Absolutely, yeah, that's a strategy that would help. It's just not always an option for everyone, right?
Yeah.
So you want to have something else in your toolkit, like adding the rent history or adding utility bills, subscription services, you know, those other tools. I'll send you guys all our credit reestablishment plan. And then you can use our links. They obviously are going to be affiliate links, but they're discounted. So that way your clients aren't paying.
No, that's totally fair. Hey, if you get a couple bucks, if you get a couple bucks for us paying 25 for you giving us a credit score and we can do a deal, I am all for it.